Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on volunteer collaboration with Bank of America's Disability Advocacy Network and National Disability Institute partners. My name is Michael Rausch, and I am the Manager of Financial Empowerment and Innovation at the National Disability Institute. Today I am joined by Paula Kelly, Client and Business Management Executive at U.S. Trust, Bank of America's Private Wealth Management Division, Chair of the Disability Advocacy Network at Bank of America, and Paula is also a board member of the National Disability Institute. Before we get started, we do have a few webinar housekeeping tips to go over. Audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are tuned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. If you accidentally close the panel, you can reopen it from the top menu item that says Communicate, Join Audio Broadcast. If you do have sound capabilities on your computer or you prefer to listen by phone, you can dial 1-855-244-8681, and that's a toll-free number. And the meeting code is 661-829-436. So you do not need to enter an attendee ID. Listen by phone. We're using real-time captioning. It is provided during this webinar for those who are deaf, hard of hearing, or for whom English is a second language. The captions can be found in Media Viewer Panel, which appears in the lower right corner of the webinar, the web platform. If you want to make the Media Viewer Panel larger, you can minimize other panels like chat, the Q&A, questions and answer, and or participants. If you submit a question during the webinar, please use the chat box or the question and answer box to send any questions you have during the webinar. You can send them myself or Nakia Matthews, and we will direct the questions accordingly during the Q&A portion that we have at the end of the webinar. If you are listening by phone and not logged into the webinar, you may also ask questions by emailing questions to Nancy Matthews at ndi-inc.org. Those questions will go to Nakia Matthews. Please note, this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on National Disability Institute's website at www.realeconomicimpact.org. If in this webinar you experience any technical difficulties, please use the chat box to send a message to the host, Nakia Matthews, or you may also email Nakia at nmatthews@ndi-inc.org. I think everybody has Nakia's email address now. But if you have any questions during the webinar, please reach out to Nakia Matthews. So great. So now we're ready to get started into why we're here today. Today we are here to share with you a new opportunity for collaboration between Bank of America's Disability Advocacy Network members and National Disability Institute's partners across the country. Today you will learn more about the Disability Advocacy Network at Bank of America, the volunteer opportunities with their members, and how you can become involved in this collaboration. For those who are new to National Disability Institute, the National Disability Institute is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to building a better economic future for Americans with disabilities. We are the first national organization committed exclusively to championing economic empowerment, asset development, and financial stability for all persons across the full spectrum of disabilities. National Disability Institute affects change through public education, training, technical assistance, and policy development to help the 1 in 3 Americans with disabilities living in poverty take steps towards brighter financial futures. Our organization is based in Washington, D.C., and we have staff members located across the country. To learn more about National Disability Institute, go to www.realeconomicimpact.org. For those of you that are longtime partners with the National Disability Institute, you know that Bank of America has been a long-time supporter of our work and our over 900 partners located across the country. Since the partnership began in 2005, Bank of America's support has assisted 1.5 million taxpayers with disabilities receive more than $1.4 billion in tax refunds. Bank of America's support has expanded the Real Economic Impact Tour, which is now called the Real Economic Impact Network, from 11 cities in 2005 to over 100 cities in 2012. And in 2012, together we educated over 1,600 individuals on economic empowerment strategies for persons with disabilities. This is only a sample of the support that Bank of America has provided over the years to build inclusive communities of practice in more than 100 cities across the country. We are excited today to share additional opportunities to educate an even larger audience. I introduce Paula Kelly, who's the U.S. Trust Bank of America Private Wealth Management and the chair of the Disability Advocacy Network at Bank of America. Paula will share information with us on Bank of America's Disability Advocacy Network and the 2 new opportunities for collaboration. Paula, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Michael. I'm very pleased to join all of you this afternoon and also to welcome here on the call with me many of our Disability Advocacy Network chapter leaders from cities across the country, as well as our partner in the Bank of America Foundation. I'm very excited to continue and to further build our relationship with NDI and work with all of you this year on the 2 opportunities that Michael referenced. I'll first just take a minute or 2 and tell you about the Disability Advocacy Network at Bank of America. It's an employee affinity or resource group. It particularly is for anyone impacted by a disability, either personally or through family member, friend, or colleague, or anyone who is just interested in an advocate for those with disabilities. So we were established to foster a work environment that really promotes and advocates for those employees impacted by disabilities. Membership has grown significantly over the last 5 years. We initially started as 1 virtual chapter with 40 members. We've now expanded to over 16 chapters globally, and we have 1,700 plus members and many thousands more who have attended the events that we've sponsored here at the bank. We have chapters, as you'll see in our deck here, in Atlanta, Michigan, San Antonio, Arizona, Dallas, New Jersey, Southern California, Northern California, Boston and Eastern New England, Delaware, New York, Charlotte, Florida, Norfolk, Virginia, Chicago, and Maine. In collaboration with NEI this year, we're really going to focus our members in terms of working with all of you here on the phone and volunteer opportunities for volunteering for financial education training as well as disability awareness training for any of your volunteers and Ad Building Coalition members and partners. Michael, I'll turn it back over to you, and we can go into more detail about those two opportunities.
Great. Thank you, Paula. Paula shared we have two opportunities here for collaboration, and we'll go into greater detail for both of them. And I would like to share that at the end we will have time for question and answer as well, so we'll be able to answer your questions. So the first one we want to share with you about is financial education training. And as we know, financial education is key to advancing up the economic ladder. And what we have found through our work is that oftentimes financial education is not offered or delivered to persons with disabilities, particularly persons with significant disabilities. And we're excited to be able to expand the opportunities on financial education and really looking at financial wellness for persons with disabilities. And as we look at financial wellness, we need to make sure that we understand the difference between banking, the difference between our creating our budgets, we need which is an appropriate budget, what is not an appropriate budget. We really need to look at our spending habits and looking at the needs versus wants, and bringing this to individuals so that they can be educated to really help them advance up the economic ladder. So in communities where there are disability advocacy network chapters, NDI will connect the DAN chapter leads. DAN stands for Disability Advocacy Network. DAN chapter leads to the coalition's leads, as well as disability lead organizations that we partner with in the different markets that Paula had mentioned. The DAN members and NDI partners will determine the training schedule and logistics for to be able to provide financial education. The DAN members will use Bank of America's financial education curriculum. They use FDIC's Money Smart curriculum, which is a great curriculum to use. The nice thing about using the FDIC's Money Smart curriculum is that it is a curriculum that is flexible to be able to meet the needs of persons with disabilities, including persons with significant disabilities. DAN members will also have as a guide NDI's tips and tools in delivering financial education to persons with disabilities, including persons with significant disabilities. The survey has been distributed to DAN members, and they have shared the number of volunteers that they have available within their region or their area, their chapter area. It shared with us the time of day they are available and the frequency that they would like to have the training offered. So the results from those surveys has shown that there are many opportunities here to really be able to engage in this work, and we really appreciate DAN members for sharing that information. The survey also we shared with our lead contacts so that as you and the DAN members work out the best time and the frequency of the trainings, you'll have that information as well. So now that you've heard about the financial education training and connecting with DAN members and what they will be providing, you might be thinking, I've been interested in a financial education program within my organization or for the individuals that I serve, but I'm just not sure how this might look. As you know, at National Disability Institute, we have assisted coalitions and organizations across the country implement financial education programs within their organizations. So we have many possibilities and examples, and we're happy to discuss some of those strategies further with you all. But I do want to share with you a few examples. So possibly you are a CRP or Community Rehabilitation Program, a Center for Independent Living, or other disability organization. It could also be one of the America's Job Centers centers, formerly or used to be known as the One-Stop Career Centers. And you could offer a brown bag lunch and learn event, where individuals can come in, they bring their own lunch, and a DAN member could potentially offer a financial education class to them. Another example would be if you have a self-advocates group or a family group that comes together on a regular basis. That could create an additional opportunity to have a guest speaker or a guest presenter come in, have a DAN member come and provide one of the key modules that is identified within FDIC's Money Smart curriculum. And that would be something that you would be able to coordinate with the members. Any other opportunities that we can look at to help make these connections for both members as well as our partners. Another strategy to share with you, though, is that I think is really important for us to look at is we look at students who are in transition, transitioning from school to work, transitioning from school to college, or whatever that transition might look like for them. Through our work, we have found that when outside partners from a financial institution provide financial education to students, transition students, we have found that it, one, eased the fear of banking, and two, we have found that it opened the door to individuals increasing their knowledge and awareness, having an outside person from the financial institution provide that financial education. On the other side, if you're a tax coalition or a community-based organization that works on asset development strategies, this could be an additional group of volunteers to use in your financial education classes if you do use FDIC's Money Smart curriculum. The possibilities, again, are endless, and the best strategy for your organization and for your area would be determined by you and the lead DAN member in your area. I'd like to note is that in each of the regions, the number of DAN members available to volunteer does vary within each community. Another key thing that I'd like to share is that April is National Financial Literacy Month, so we hope to have some of these opportunities up and running sometime in April, if possible. At the National Disability Institute, we will be celebrating National Financial Literacy Month and partnering with Bank of America on some other opportunities that month as well. So if you are interested in this, please be sure to let us know, and we can get this going. Paula, would you like to add anything else before we go on to the next opportunity?
No, you really covered everything nicely, Michael. I appreciate that. And really, we are really excited here at Bank of America within the Disability Advocacy Network to work with all of you as community partners across the country. So we look forward to Michael connecting us to you.
Great. Oops. Thanks. I skipped an extra slide there. Great. Thank you, Paula. So the second volunteer opportunity that we will be partnering with the Disability Advocacy Network members at Bank of America on is to provide disability awareness training. And as many of you know who have been longtime partners with the National Disability Institute, disability awareness training has been a piece that our partners have asked for, particularly from the tax VITA coalitions that we work with, as well as our asset development partners. And so this opportunity increases awareness for VITA volunteers, tax and asset building coalitions, debt management partners, individual development account providers, and financial education providers. Again, in communities where DAN has a chapter presence, NDI will connect the DAN chapter leads to the coalition leads or asset building partner leads in the area. DAN members will use NDI's disability awareness training This was a training that was created last year and been updated for this year, and through support from Bank of America last year, this training was created and has been used by tax coalitions across the country. We are in the middle of tax season here, so for VITA and tax coalitions who would like to have disability awareness training for your volunteers, please note that we will be pushing this out in the summer and fall months. We know that VITA volunteers are trained in the fall months, and so this would be a great addition to be able to add, to have a volunteer come in to be able to provide the disability awareness training to volunteers. If you would like to have your staff trained or coalition members trained over the summer months, that definitely could potentially be a possibility. That would be something to work out with the lead for Dan in your area when we make that connection. This is also a great opportunity for individual development account providers, financial education providers, debt management counselors to be trained on disability awareness as they serve customers with disabilities. We receive a great response from various organizations who are asking for disability awareness so that they can better support customers with disabilities. And so it's really exciting now to have additional trainers that will be able to support this activity across the country. Again, the possibilities of offering this volunteer opportunity is endless. It is something that you and the Dan chapters would coordinate and work out when it comes to the logistical pieces and the frequency of the training. All right. Paula, anything else to add on this opportunity?
Not at all. And we're equally as excited to help out on this opportunity as well.
Great.
We've actually done a lot of disability awareness training within the company, so certainly it's something that's very part of our priority here.
Great. Thank you. And, a question did come in. I really appreciate it. I use acronyms quite a bit. I apologize. VITA, when we talk about VITA volunteers, we are talking about the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Project or program, where volunteers are trained to provide free tax preparation services to low to moderate income individuals. So VITA stands for Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, and I apologize for using the acronym there. Great. So now you've heard about these two opportunities, and you might be wondering, okay, how do I connect? What do we do next? So we have put together some steps here for you to look at and to follow. So if you're interested in being connected with Dan volunteers, Disability Advocacy Network volunteers at Bank of America in your community, please send an email to my colleague, Andrew Joseph, and his email is AJOSE, as in Paul, H as in Henry, at di-inc.org. And also share with us your preference of financial education and or disability awareness training. I would ask if you could, in the subject line of your email, please use Disability Advocacy Network Volunteer Connection. The PowerPoint's going to be available for everyone right after the event, so you'll have this information. And so Andrew will be taking this information. We have this great spreadsheet that we've created with Bank of America that has all partners included, and we will add that to the spreadsheet. Step 2 would be an email introduction from NDI will connect you with the lead Dan volunteer in your area. And we will potentially schedule a conference call amongst the three of us, our NDI and both of you, to look at additional opportunities, to look at the preference and things like that. The step 3 will be for you to connect with the Dan leaders to look at the training schedule schedules, event location, and other training logistics that you would need to be able to implement this or these opportunities to provide financial education and disability awareness. And then the final step would be to complete a post-evaluations that we will submit to you, and you would submit those back to us at the National Disability Institute. NDI, as well as at Bank of America, we're here to provide support in making these connections and making sure that this is a positive experience for everyone involved. And so you can definitely reach out to myself or to Andrew as we go through this process. So I know we've covered a lot of information here in 30 minutes, and so what I'd like to do is to go through and answer any questions that you might have. And so, Nakia, will you be fielding those questions?
I have one that came in from Brian, and he wanted to know how does he find who his area's DAN contact is?
Great, and Brian. From the previous slide, you can follow these steps and reach out to Andrew Joseph and connect with him. And what we'll do is we'll look at your preferences, and then we will make a connection with Dan, the lead team member in your area. We have 3 staff members who will be, or 2 staff members who will be assisting me in making these connections. Depending on your area, Andrew Joseph will be making connections for a few of the cities. I will be taking on the majority of the cities, and then our colleague Katie Metz will also be assisting in making the connections for you in your area. All right, great. Any other questions? Yeah.
No, that is all the questions that I got.
I have one that came in. It was asking about the time frame, so that's a great question. Looking at the time frame and making the connections, so once we get the information from each of you, then we will go back and connect with the DAN partners, check their availability, and get meetings scheduled and make the email connection. We do hope that if there are groups that are interested in starting up a program sometime in April, a financial education class, and if it works for the DAN members in your area, we definitely would like to get that going sooner than later. So you can let us know how soon you would like to get started in getting these opportunities going, and then we'll be sure to share that with the DAN lead when the initial connection is made. There's complete flexibility on that. The other question that came through was asking about is the training one-time presentations or ongoing, and that is a great question. So that is something that you would be able to coordinate and work out. It goes back to the training logistics, to be able to work out with the DAN members in your area. DAN members in different communities have shared that they're available. They might have a large number of volunteers, so they said, some areas said once a week, some said once a month, others said once a quarter, depending on the training. If you look at FDIC's Money Smart, there are 10 modules that are a part of it. Of course, not each of those modules are relevant, may not be relevant to the audience. So, for example, if I'm working with a group of individuals and who have a significant disability, let's say, and have may not be accessing a 401k due to the resource limits attached to the public benefits they're receiving, I may not offer that particular module to that group, but I might be working with another group, and 401ks are an option that they are within their employment setting, so I could offer that module. So you and the Dan leads will be able to look at how often you want to offer the training, which modules to train on, and to be able to go through. Paula, would you like to add anything else to that question?
I think you covered it fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely, the whole concept is flexibility, and it's a relationship between the Dan chapter and the community partners, and we'll work together to meet the needs that are out there.
Great. And then another question came in about how to become trained volunteers. And I'm thinking that might be a Bank of America question to our partners that are on from one of the local chapters. So we, which is a great question. So we will be doing a series of webinars for Dan members in your region. They will be, and you will receive that. The notice will be going out to the chapter leads. Should either or first of next week. We are looking at the branding items. How do we co-brand some things? So that kind of we're looking at that. But we will start this series of webinars. They will be webinars that the content will be the same through each of them. So let's say, for example, you have 50 volunteers in your area within your chapter. All of them do not need to attend the same one. It could be based on their schedule when they're available. They'll come on, and we will go over all of the training materials, go over the tips and tools, and they will have all of those materials that they'll be able to use. So I hope that answers that question. Great. Are there any other questions? Again. All right. Most of the questions here. I would just say, before we close out the webinar, I would like to say a special thank you to Bank of America, and particularly Bank of America's Disability Advocacy Network, and to Paula Kelly for this opportunity to expand awareness and to educate persons with disabilities on the importance of financial wellness. I would also like to thank Andrew Joseph with the National Disability Institute and his support of this project. And I'd also like to thank Nakia Matthews, who is our technology guru, for her assistance on this project as well. I greatly appreciate the support. Finally, if you have any additional questions after the webinar, please feel free to contact me. Here is my contact information. My email address is mroush@ndi-inc.org, as well as my phone number is 727 area code 278-1352. 727-278-1352. So with that, no additional questions have come in. Thank you again for participating. And Paula, any words?
Just thanks for the opportunity, and again, thanks to all of the Dan chapter members and who were on the call with us this afternoon as well. And again, we look forward to working with all of you.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.